Hey, this is Paul Feig, and you're listening to Fascination Street podcast. This podcast is always good, never evil.
Yeah, AV in your ears. That's Ambush Van giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my boy Steve. Fascination Street, y'all already know. Let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you?
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Michael Lukk Litwak. He is the director and the creator of Molli and Max in the Future, which is a sci-fi romantic comedy in the vein of When Harry Met Sally and Rick and Morty. What do you think about that crazy comparison? It stars Zosia, Mamet, and Aristotle, Athari, a few other people, but those are the two main characters. And in this episode, we talk about what got Michael into filmmaking, some of the things that he did before this film. This is his first feature film, and he was actually able to world premiere it at South by Southwest, which is super rad. My wife and I had the opportunity to watch this movie before it hit theaters, and we loved it. Like I said, it is a romantic comedy set in space. It's got the laughs, it's got the feels, it's got the effects. I think you're all going to dig this movie. Check it out. Again, it's called Molli and Max in the Future. I'm sure it's going to be streaming everywhere as you're listening to this. So check it out everywhere. And this is my conversation with the creator and director of Molli and Max in the Future, Michael Lukk Litwak.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Michael Lukk Litwak. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I cannot complain. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Michael Lukk Litwak. He is the director and the creator of the film that just came out in February. It is called Molli and Max in the Future. Came out in theaters February 9th. We're going to talk about that today. But first, Michael, what I like to do is start from the beginning. It helps us understand how people got to where they are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California.
Boo.
Where are you from?
No, I'm from San Antonio. Where at in LA?
Like the West Side, Venice Beach, Santa Monica area.
Oh, okay.
Moved to New York to go to NYU, and I've kind of stuck around here ever since. I live in Brooklyn now in Clinton Hill.
Oh, so you're not in LA anymore. You're in NY. Okay.
Yeah, I've been in Brooklyn for, I haven't counted recently, 14, 15 years now.
Did you go to Tisch?
I did, yeah, to NYU Tisch, undergrad.
Oh, wow. Why did you want to go there? What about Tisch drew you across the country?
So I wanted to go to Tisch because, everybody knows that USC and NYU are kind of the two best film schools in the US. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of things I like about it, but I just kind of wanted something different. I grew up going to New York, visiting my grandparents that live there. My dad's originally from Queens. And so I had really fond memories of going there, sometimes in the winters, sometimes in the summers, and, going to see Broadway shows, and my grandma taking me around the city. So I always loved New York. I wanted to spend time there. I did a NYU summer high school program, which is kind of like an intro to the program that is a little mini film school for a couple of weeks. And I really loved that. And you stay in NYU dorms, you kind of get the NYU student experience, but it's only for a couple of weeks. You get to kind of do a trial run, which I feel like most colleges you don't really get to do that with. And so I did that, and I loved it, and decided to kind of take the plunge and go for it.
As I mentioned earlier, you're the creator and the director of Molli and Max in the Future. Is this your first feature film?
It is, yeah. I directed shorts and commercials and branded content for about 10 years.
What does that mean, branded content? I hear that a lot. What does that mean?
Basically commercials that don't pay as well, but they're basically commercials that are longer. Sometimes it'll be an interview that is like sponsored by a product or something. Basically short form video. So anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes. When you're directing a commercial, there are time limits. You have 30 seconds, 60 seconds, sometimes 15 seconds. But if branded content, it can be like an interview show where two people get interviewed and it's sponsored by a product or something. So, it's its own little world.
Love it. Okay, so Like I said, we're going to talk about Molly and Max in a minute, but a little birdie told me that this might be incorrect. Did you work with Paul Feig on a project?
Yeah, I developed a project with his company, Powder Keg, which was his digital studio. And I had a really great experience with them. I had a short film that I made called Alpha Squadron. It found its way to his development executives and to him. And I met with him, and he's an extremely nice guy.
3-time guest of Fascination Street podcast.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
He is the nicest guy ever.
Yeah, he really is. And so, he wanted to be supportive. And so I developed that short film into a TV show pitch, and we pitched it around and nobody wanted to buy it. But it was a really good experience. I really think back on that collaboration fondly. And I really like the people at his company a lot. And I still, keep in touch with them.
And so that was Alpha Squadron?
Yeah.
Is it dead as a TV show? I mean,
for now, you never know if something will revive it. I love that short. I kind of love the concept. I have another feature that is kind of about a group of friends that has some similar kind of thematic overlap. So I think I'm kind of prioritizing that right now.
Makes sense. Plus, you got your hands full with Molly and Max right now.
It's true.
So what was the plan? What did you want to be when you grew up? You're growing up in LA. Everybody's in the industry, so to speak. What did your parents do?
So my dad is an independent film entertainment lawyer. And then
does that mean he's an independent lawyer who works on film, or does that mean he's a lawyer who works on independent film?
Both. He has his own business and he works on a lot of independent films and also TV and movies, but he has essentially his own company, and he's a one-man band and, works on projects kind of all sizes.
Your mom?
My mom worked in news and journalism for many years, and she also works as a safari guide for the Smithsonian, and she also works on cruise ships.
There's a safari at the Smithsonian?
The Smithsonian gives safari tours in Africa, and she'll go on and assist them with them.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, she loves it.
Have you been on a safari with her?
I have. I haven't been on one of the Smithsonian ones, but I went on one that was part of a cruise through Africa, and it was pretty incredible.
That sounds amazing. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was the plan?
I don't know if I've ever wanted to be anything other than a filmmaker. I grew up loving the Los Angeles Lakers, and so there was maybe a period where I wanted to be an NBA player, and then I think once I got not tall enough. And I think as soon as I realized that being an NBA player wasn't in the cards, and I was never even that good at basketball, but that was maybe my very early childhood dream. And then in middle school, I started falling in love with movies, and the kinds of movies that got me into filmmaking are like Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, kind of, big budget action adventure.
So the big ones, the epics. Okay.
Yeah, kind of plot driven, VFX heavy films that are really about kind of taking you on a roller coaster ride. And then, as I got older and kind of became a teenager, I found myself kind of gravitating towards a different type of movies like Annie Hall and When Harry Met Sally and Amelie, and movies that are kind of about real people living in the real world, and they still can have kind of a sense of wonder to them and excitement, but are, very relatable, very kind of human problems, not necessarily life and death stakes all the time. And so, I kind of have had that kind of love of these two different types of movies my whole life. And then I knew I wanted to go to NYU. I moved there, and I just started making short films and trying to figure out my voice and my style and figure out what I wanted. And in the process of just making a bunch of short films, I kind of, realized that I wanted to make movies that were true to kind of what got me into filmmaking in the first place, but also kind of true to what kept me in filmmaking. And so that is kind of how, I found my voice and ended up finding kind of the story for Molli and Max.
So you made a bunch of short films. Is a bunch a fair number?
Yeah, I'd made about a dozen.
Okay, well, that is a bunch. Why short films? Because if I understand correctly, there's no money in short films.
There is not any money. It's a way to kind of practice your craft and learn how to make movies and gain experience. And it's a great way to learn about yourself as an artist. The goal is always to get to features, but those last 6 short films I made were in the process of also trying to get features made. But features cost so much more money. They cost so much time, and shorts are sometimes things that you can shoot in a weekend with a couple of friends. And so the logistical requirement is so much lower. You can make a bunch of shorts and get a bunch of practice. And I think it's important to spend that time learning about yourself, because no one expects you to paint a masterpiece in your first painting. You need to go through draftsmanship and learn how to figure draw and, do all these other steps.
I've heard a lot of people equate short films to like a calling card, kind of a, hey, this is what I can do. Did you find it to be that way for you?
Yeah, definitely. My NYU thesis kind of went viral overnight, and that ended up getting me a lot of attention. That got me an agent and a manager and opened up a lot of opportunities. And those representatives are kind of what got me those opportunities with people like Paul Feig. And so, on one hand, I do think that that kind of story makes sense of the short film as calling card, but I also think that a lot of people kind of overestimate what a short film can do for you. There's kind of this mythical pathway of like, you make a short and then it blows up and then you'll be on your way to make a feature. And I actually think you have to kind of make your first feature the way you made your first short, which is keep it small, make it with your friends. Don't wait around for other people to help you necessarily do that. So that's kind of what we ended up doing with Molli and Max.
I know you said that, it helps you practice and kind of get better at this and that. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned or the biggest skill that you learned doing all those short films?
I mean, I could honestly talk for hours. I literally gave a talk last night that was 2 hours of talking about all of the things I learned over the decade of making short films leading up to this film. If I had to really simplify it, it is you find your voice as a writer. You figure out what you like and what you don't like. You figure out how to work with people. Filmmaking is a really collaborative art. You have to work as a team. You have to learn how to pick your team members. You have to learn how to deal with complicated situations, balancing kind of what you need to get with what you have access to, learning how to spread your resources and take full advantage of them. You learn how to work with actors. There's just 1,000 rookie mistakes that you don't realize you're making until you make them. And I think making all of those shorts, I made a lot of those mistakes and I learned a lot from them.
I think it's hilarious that you gave a feature-length talk about short films. That's funny. Let's talk about Molli and Max in the future. This was created, and so therefore I can say written by you. Is that right?
Correct.
So that would make you an auteur, right? Is that how we say it?
Sure.
I gotta know, why theaters? Like I said, Max and Molli in the Future came out in theaters February 9th. I can't imagine that in 2024 and going forward that director's first feature film is going to be shown in theaters very often. So why did you decide to go the theater route? And was this up to you?
Yeah, it was up to me. I mean, we got offers for non-theatrical distribution. The fact of the matter is 99% of movies don't get theatrical distribution. And, we're very lucky to have found a partner that wants to put it in theaters. We're not a wide release. We're not going to be in hundreds of movie theaters, but they have a strategy to put us in theaters and somewhere between 20 and 100. And the number of theaters kind of changes up until the last second, because when you're a smaller movie, if they don't have something to show in theater number 5 the day before your release, they might assign that theater to you. But, part of the theatrical release is that you get a lot more exposure because it is in theaters. And so it's a lot easier to get a New York Times review. It's a lot easier to get on a late night show. It's a lot easier to have people cover your movie because there is kind of this bias against stuff that goes straight to video on demand. And so even if you put the movie in theaters and it makes $0, it's often what they call a loss leader. Statistics have shown that putting a movie in theaters helps it do more on video on demand because people think about it as a theatrical movie as opposed to a straight to video on demand movie. So there's kind of these ancillary benefits, and it's sometimes hard to measure them, but we luckily have found a really great partner in our distributor. And once you give up that theatrical window, you're making $0. And so we might as well try to make money off of this first window, and then we'll continue to use the other revenue opportunities down the line.
Do you know how long it's in theaters?
It really depends upon the place. So, in New York, we're here for at least a week. In certain cities, it's one night only. In other places, it's for the weekend. If the movie does well enough, then obviously the theaters want to keep playing it. There have been things that are word of mouth hits. I don't think you can ever expect something to be a word of mouth hit, but you never know.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I got nervous.
I saw you walk in.
Max?
You know what? I don't have time for an autograph. You go ahead and take this one.
No, Max, it's me. It's Molly.
Molly. Oh, my science. If you must know, I am seeing somebody.
Okay, that's great. Who is she?
She's actually my mecha partner.
You're dating a robot? All the Passionauts are together in one relationship. I'm a level 7 space witch now.
I think you're in a cult.
I can leave whenever I want to. I just don't want to because I'm like super happy. Are we in a cult?
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just clarify? Are we gonna sleep together?
You think we're compatible?
No. No, definitely not. But that can make for great sex. I'm not asking you to marry me.
Oh, marriage is definitely out of the question.
Okay, see, that's flirting. You're flirting.
Let's get back into it.
Okay, once again, the movie is called Molli and Max in the Future. I have heard you equate it to When Harry Met Sally meets Rick and Morty. And having seen the film with my lovely wife, I would agree. It does have all of the will they, won't they of When Harry Met Sally, plus the cute little back and forth with the two main stars. It's basically a two-hander, as they say. There's basically two main characters. There's a few ancillary characters, but by far the fewest I've seen in any film for a long time. Tell me about the casting. So Aristotle Athari and Zosia Mamet. Did I say her name right? Zosia?
Yeah.
So Aristotle Athari and Zosia Mamet, how did you get them on board?
So we had a really incredible casting director named Kate Geller. She was also a producer on the film, and she casts a lot of indie films out of New York. And I had some friends that had worked with Zosia on another project. So we had some mutual friends, and they had kind of sung her praises about how nice she is, how easy she is to work with, how professional, and also just a really kind, empathetic person who's a really great team player. So I had wanted to work with her for a long time because she was on Girls on HBO. She was on The Flight Attendant. She has a huge body of work that shows without a doubt that she's extremely funny and can improvise. She has all these different talents and facets of her work that you can point to. So for Zosia, it was really like a no-brainer. Aristotle, I wasn't as familiar with. He was on SNL first season, and I found him through that, and Kate kind of sent him my way, and I met up with him, and he's just a really kind, nice, friendly person. But he has a long career as a stand-up behind him where he regularly makes people laugh and has his shtick and his characters. And, he also was in a sketch comedy group for a while. So he has a variety of different things he can do, including impressions and characters. But then he also has kind of this inherent personality. And I think that's something that's important in a romantic comedy where you have Meg Ryan, you have Billy Crystal. Like, they're obviously incredible actors, but they kind of bring a little bit of themselves to the movie, and they aren't necessarily these chameleons that can melt into completely different things. I think they have their distinct voice, and that's one of the things that makes them really special.
Love it. Aristotle used to have a couple of different podcasts, and one of his podcast co-hosts or partners was a guy named Andy Harris, previous guest of the show, Andy Harris, and he had nothing but nice things to say about Aristotle as well. And as far as Zosia, there was a show called You're the Worst. I think it was an FX show. And for the sake of argument, let's just say that show went for 5 seasons. And there was one episode midway through the final season where the main character goes back home and reunites with her old best friend. And it's Zosia. And it's very rare, especially in like season 5 of a TV show, where a guest star will come on and just completely steal the entire episode. And that's exactly what Zosia did. It was a standout performance in a show that she's not even a part of. You know, there was 100 episodes and she was in one of them, but it was super standout. So I was excited to see that she was going to be part of this project. Were you nervous at all working with Zosia, considering who her father is?
Not really. I mean, you do research on people and you find out what their reputation is. And like I said, she has a reputation as just being incredibly nice, incredibly kind. And when you're making a small independent film, you also need people that are team players that don't have egos and kind of understand, you know, what they're getting themselves into. And she really was all of those things. At the time, you know, she was probably the biggest actor I'd ever worked with, but she's just really good at making people feel comfortable. And after she came on board the project, she set kind of the tone of it being very casual. And it wasn't like you have to go through my team to talk to me. It was like, yeah, text me if you have a question or something. And, you know, not every actor is like that. So she really was so gracious and generous. And she really set the tone for everybody else too, because I think everybody saw her acting like that and then, you know, wanted to kind of meet her there and mirror that behavior. So it really was, you know, she was a godsend.
I think that being first on the call sheet, I don't know if I can, but I will assume she was number one on the call sheet. I think that comes with a lot of responsibility, that being one of them. Everybody else in the cast and crew is going to kind of look toward, you know, the number one on the call sheet and mirror, like you said, mirror that behavior or that activity. So I think that, I mean, I don't have to tell you, I think she was a great choice. She knocked it out of the park.
Thank you.
And my wife and I loved it. I asked my wife if she wanted to tell you anything. I said, is there anything you want me to tell or ask Michael? And she said, no, but tell him I did love the movie. And as many callbacks and Easter eggs as there were all over that film, she said, I really would have dug it if there was a callback to Girls by having her character say something like, Obvi, we're the ladies. So why is there so many Easter eggs in this film? Why did you decide to do that? Obviously, it was intentional.
Yeah. You know, I love a little good Easter egg. I never want it to be distracting or kind of take people out of the film. But I think it's one of those things like I'm a movie lover. I love watching movies for the third or fourth time and then realizing that there was something in the background that I didn't notice. And I think a good Easter egg is something that doesn't get in the way, that can add a little bit extra to a secondary or third viewing and, you know, is kind of a little bit of a nod to something that is either from the genre or from film history, because I also love, you know, those kind of clever little references in the background that kind of place the movie within the history of cinema.
You said you like to watch a movie several times, like over and over again. What's the movie that you've watched the most and why?
Say Rushmore or Jurassic Park. I think Jurassic Park is just one of the most fun movies ever made. And
the first one?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a perfect film. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's so much fun. It's a great horror movie. It's a great family movie. It's got incredible special effects. It holds up so well. I think it's like a masterclass in filmmaking, and it's really funny.
People don't really say that very often, but you're right. Jurassic Park is hilarious. You mentioned special effects and visual effects. Tell me about the process of using miniatures in the making of this film, specifically the smart car model and how you modified it.
Yeah. So we spent about 18 months kind of building all of the backgrounds for the film before we ever shot Zosia or Ari or any of the actors in front of a green screen or in front of a rear screen projection.
That means that at the time that you were making this film, was he still on Saturday Night Live or was he not there yet?
We filmed this movie in the summer right after he finished his first season.
Okay.
But me and Zach, my DP, started building the miniatures a year and a half beforehand.
Gotcha.
And so Ari and Zosia were not officially attached when we started kind of building out the world of the film. Everything in the movie is made by hand. It's all using kind of real things. You know, there's no CG really in the film. There's a tiny, tiny bit, but there's almost no CG in the film. Everything's a practical miniature that we built and painted and then filmed and then combined with other images of practical miniatures. We started that process in my living room and we would do it 1 or 2 or 3 days a week for that year and a half. And little by little, we learned things about how to composite stuff and, went back and refilmed certain things and built new things. And, throughout that 18 months was when we were trying to raise the money for the film, getting the actors attached, getting all the other puzzle pieces in line. And then by the time we filmed, the first week that we filmed was all on an LED stage. So an LED stage is kind of like what they shoot The Mandalorian on, where it's giant TV screens and the actors stand in front of a giant TV screen.
So does that replace a green screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you've ever seen like an old movie where two people are driving and then the outside the window behind them, you see like the car, you can tell that it's like footage of somebody driving down a street. In that case, it kind of looks fake, but essentially what they do on The Mandalorian is the same thing, only it's in the background. They're inside like a video game engine. We used a similar thing where basically instead of them driving down a road, we filmed these miniatures and then made essentially a video clip. And then we would play that video clip on the TV and the actors would stand in front of that. And so when you're done shooting that, there's no green screen. What you see in the camera is your final product. And it's really fun. It's really nice to have that, to be able to kind of see what you're shooting while you're shooting it. We also did shoot 30 to 40% of the movie is green screen. And that's because we just didn't have time to finish those backgrounds in time to shoot them practically.
Now, you said you didn't have time. Is it true that you finished this film 3 days before it premiered at South by Southwest?
Yeah, we did. Yes. We submitted it to South by Southwest with a picture locked cut, which means the timing doesn't change. But a lot of the visual effects were not done. They liked it enough and they believed in us that we would get it done in time. And so they told us that we were accepted into the festival. And then we had to scramble to get everything done in time because our VFX team was 2 people. It was me and Zach. And so we did not have a large team of people to rely upon. It was just me and Zach kind of finishing everything. And then you screen using something called the DCP, which is like digital cinema projection. You submit that 3 to 4 weeks ahead of the festival, but they told us we were in, I think, 8 weeks beforehand. And we basically emailed them back and were like, what is the absolute last day that we can turn this in? Because we need every single second that we can get. And we did. We used every single second we could get. And they told us basically like the last day you can do it is 3 days beforehand, because if something goes wrong and you test it and it doesn't work, then you need to be able to fix it. So you can't just show up with it. We need to give yourself at least a little bit of buffer. But we turned it in and 3 days later we were there watching it on the big screen, and I was very stressed out that something was going to go wrong technically at the screening, because it was just us double checking everything and making sure that something didn't go wrong. And luckily when the credits rolled, I breathed a huge sigh of relief and was very, very grateful that we got through it.
So the world premiere of this film, Molli and Max in the Future, was at South by Southwest in 2023. How was it received?
It was received really well. I mean, we're at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. I'm sure it's not going to stay there forever, but I couldn't have asked for a better response. The one splat that we got was from someone who was like, it really comes down to what your sense of humor is. And when it comes to getting a negative review, like I can't argue with that. No movie is going to have a sense of humor that's for everybody. But in general, I think so many people really understood what we were going for. It got really good laughs. Hearing a live audience kind of laugh at your jokes is a thrill like no other. I really couldn't have asked for a better response. I'm very grateful.
Was that the first time you had been to South by Southwest?
It was, yeah.
How was your experience? Other than freaking out that your film was going to mess up, how was your experience? What did you think of South by Southwest?
I loved it. Honestly, it was a dream come true. I'd been making shorts for 10 years and none of my movies had ever gotten accepted there. And so I was really, really grateful to get in, because I know how hard it is to get in there. And so I didn't take it for granted. They have a great audience. In our second screening, something I'll always remember is like, the first screening was stressful because it was the first time that we'd ever shown it. And I was honestly just worried about the technical things, something going wrong. At the second screening, I sat in the back right and I kind of just watched the audience, not so obviously that I would make anyone uncomfortable, but I kind of just kept on glancing. And there was one guy in the row in front of me who just had his hands on his head and his face was smiling the entire movie. And I was like, this is amazing. This is why you make movies. You want to see people's reactions. You want to see the effect it has on people, and to watch him just be completely kind of bewitched by the film was really, really special. And I think that South by Southwest has a great reputation because its audience really is down to take a chance on a crazy, weird, small movie. And I think we got such a good response because of that, because so much of seeing a movie in a theater is also like how the rest of the audience is reacting.
When I was watching it, I watched it at my house in my bedroom, and I kept wishing I had a bigger TV because the way that film is shot and the colors and the effects, it's meant to be on a giant screen. So I'm glad that it's in theaters. It was beautiful on my shitbox TV, but I can't imagine how gorgeous it was on a full-size screen. Were you pinching yourself? The second screening, the first screening, you were just, biting your fingernails. But the second screening, were you just pinching yourself and you're just like, I can't believe I'm right here. I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah, 100%. No, I mean, I really tried to go into the festival experience with as little expectations as possible and just try to remain present. And I think it's really easy to, whenever you complete something or finish something, to immediately think about what's next and to not really like be in the moment. And so I was really, really proud of the fact that, we got to go to the festival. We had 20 people that worked on the movie all there, and we got to all celebrate together. Everybody who worked on this film really put in so much time and energy and effort and worked for much cheaper than they normally work because they really cared about it. So to be able to kind of celebrate with the rest of the cast and the crew and have them kind of see the effect that their work had on people too was just incredibly rewarding.
How much of the cast got to show up to South by Southwest for the premiere?
So Zosia was in Italy shooting, unfortunately, so she couldn't make it. But we had Aristotle there. We had Paloma Garcia-Lee, who plays Cassie. We had Grace Kulan-Schmidt, who plays Triangulon. And then our DP was there. Basically, the entire crew was essentially there because our entire crew was 12 people. And that was really amazing to just be able to have a celebration with them.
Are you married?
I am, yes.
Did your spouse enjoy the fact that you had miniatures all over the apartment?
Yes, she did. She's really supportive and, I keep them clean and organized, but we started dating at NYU and she's been there from the very beginning. So she's kind of seen me over the years of all the kind of ups and downs and starts and stops it takes to live a creative life. And so, she has sacrificed a lot and she's seen me sacrifice a lot in order to help me achieve my dreams. And, I've also supported her and sacrificed for her in order to help support her dreams. And she was supportive from day one. And, I'd always clean up after shooting too. So that I think helps with keeping your roommate happy.
Yeah, for sure. What do you hope this film does for you? I don't mean, do you hope it has a 45-week run in the theater and you get nominated for a bunch of stuff? What I mean is, what doors do you hope this film opens for you as a creator and as a director?
Every movie is a miracle. And I think getting the next film made is always the priority. I think having too set or rigid of an expectation for exactly what happens next is kind of a fool's errand. So, I have my next script. We're starting to send it out to investors. We're starting to send it out to talent. I'm really excited about it. I think it would be amazing. But you never know. Sometimes things pop up out of nowhere and take your life in a completely different direction. And so, what's important to me is that I work on projects that I care about with people that treat each other well and that I'm doing something that I find interesting and challenging. And I think I know what my next project is going to be, but you just can never really tell with the way the world works and the way the film industry works. So we'll see what happens.
That's a great answer. Michael Lukk Litwak. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
So I'm on Instagram at Michael Litwak. That's MichaelLitwak. We also have a Molli and Max Instagram account. That's MOLLI and Max. I also have a website that is michaellitwak.com where you can find all of that. And I also have a mailing list that people can sign up for if you want to be kept up to date on everything that I'm doing.
Sweet. What's your next project that you don't want to tell me about?
It's a sci-fi Western.
No way. Wait
Yeah.
a minute. Is it Firefly?
No, it isn't, but it has some Firefly vibes to it.
It would have to if it's a Western. Aren't all space movies a Western?
Yeah, I mean, the Western has kind of died and the space frontier is kind of the next frontier. So it's been really fun to kind of dive into that world and into the history of Westerns and anti-Westerns and learn about that.
Well, I know that you're always focused on the next thing, but like you said earlier, I hope you really do take some time to enjoy the ride right now that you're on, because how many people get to do that? How many people get to see their movie up on a big screen, much less at South by Southwest, but how many people even get to have their movie on a big screen? Like, I really, really hope you're taking the time to enjoy the success of right now. There's always time to do the next thing. You know, like you said, it's not going to be in theaters forever, but enjoy it while it's in theaters, man. I really, really hope you're having a good time.
Thank you.
I really wish I was eating popcorn when I was watching the movie, because it is definitely a popcorn movie.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You know, I hope it'll be one of those things that every couple of years the theater decides to throw it up on the screen and people come out for it. And that's always the best way to see a film. But I also think it works great at home. I love watching films at home, and I love rewatching them in the theater later too. So more movies is always better.
Yeah, it'd be super cool. You know, maybe Alamo Drafthouse will just make it part of their regular schedule.
You never know.
That'd be amazing. You do never know. Michael, before I let you go, is there anything we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about specifically that you wanted to talk about today? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I feel like you covered it all.
That is good news, my friend. Michael Lukk Litwak, creator and director of Molli and Max in the Future. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your crazy day and your busy and hectic making sci-fi westerns and love stories set in space schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I had so much fun.
Me too. Thanks for having me. This was a really fun chat, and thanks for helping us get the word out about the film.
Absolutely. It was 100% my pleasure. It was a really, really good movie.
Thank you.
And my wife is not really the kind of person who's like, hey, let's watch a movie that I've never heard anything about. She's not really that person, but she loved this movie. She really had a good time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So well done.
Oh, nice. That's been one of the fun parts is like have friends who are like, you know, I don't normally like science fiction movies, but then they still really love the movie, or friends that are like, you know, I don't normally like romantic comedies, but I still really like the movie. And I think that to me is like one of the best compliments you can get is somebody who they might not have initially thought that the movie was for them. And then just in the process of watching it, they get won over.
I love it. Except for that one asshole who splatted you. Oh, it just wasn't for you, bro.
No, they're okay. They're okay.
Yeah, you take the good, you take the bad, right?
Yeah, but that's all right. That's all right.
Thank you, Michael. I really, really appreciate your time, and you have a great rest of your week, man. Go have some fun and enjoy red carpets and go to every movie theater you can to watch this movie. I bet it's going to be amazing.
Thank you, man.
I appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin.
Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.